The Nuxt ecosystem offers a plethora of tools designed to streamline the development workflow and enhance your productivity. For developers looking to transition from beginners to pros in Nuxt.js, understanding and leveraging these tools can significantly improve your development experience, save you time, and ultimately make your apps more robust and scalable. Whether you're a seasoned Nuxt developer or just starting with the framework, it's easy to become so focused on our individual project and solving our own problems that we forget the treasure trove of possibilities an ecosystem offers. So in Vue Mastery's Pro Nuxt Workflow course, we're going to dig beneath the surface of Nuxt in order to uncover some gems that can enhance your workflow and get you using Nuxt to its fullest potential. Here's a glimpse of some of the things we'll be uncovering. We're going to learn how to build beautiful UIs faster with Nuxt UI, unlock full-stack capabilities in our app with Nuxt Nitro, take control of our routes with Nuxt Middleware. We're going to learn how to manage content with ease using Nuxt Content and Nuxt Studio. We're also going to learn how to debug like a pro with Nuxt DevTools. And finally, we're going to learn how to craft performance-focused apps by leveraging Nuxt's performance abilities and tools. Ready to take your Nuxt development skills to the next level? Alright, I'll see you in the course. Performance is vital for the long-term success of a modern web application, as it impacts things like SEO, user experience, engagement, and conversion rate. When used to its max potential, Nuxt can be a performance powerhouse with built-in features like server-side rendering and code splitting. In this lesson, we're going to explore some techniques that can help us improve and maintain the performance of our applications over time. Let's take a look at this simple news app. Although this app is purely presentational, we can introduce several techniques to improve its overall performance. We're going to take a look at implementing delayed hydration, image optimization, and dynamic imports to boost our app's performance. First, let's take a look at implementing delayed hydration. Delayed hydration is a technique used to hint Google that our scripts are not required for our app to function. By doing this on our site, we can improve its performance by reducing the blocking time for our apps. Nuxt offers a Nuxt Delay Hydration module that facilitates delayed hydration. This module injects a promise into your app using a location that is determined by the module. The promise resolves upon any user interaction, such as a mouse move, scroll, click, or an idle callback with a set timeout. Alright, let's go ahead and install the Nuxt Delay Hydration module. Then, we'll simply configure this module in our Nuxt config file by adding the Nuxt Delay Hydration option to the modules array. We can configure the optimization of our app with the Delay Hydration object. The Debug option allows us to hydrate our app in development mode and view hydration logs in the browser console after our app loads. We can also add an option to determine the hydration mode that we want. There are several mode options available. Init will delay all scripts from loading until the hydration promise is resolved, whereas mount will only delay Nuxt during the mounting process. This ensures that plugins and certain third-party scripts function properly, but the rendering of layout and page components will be postponed. Next, let's discuss images. Oftentimes, images significantly impact page load time, especially when you have multiple large images. A great way to ensure your images are optimized is to use the Nuxt Image module to render your images. This module helps resize and transform images using the built-in optimizer or your preferred image CDN. It also offers support for WebP and AVIF image format. We can install the image module using this command. After installation, we will need to include the module in our modules array in our Nuxt config file, just like we did earlier. Once we've done that, we can use it by simply replacing our image tags with the Nuxt image tags like so. If we inspect what is being rendered in the browser, we will note a few things. The first thing to note is that it renders with the native image tag and the attributes attached to it. Next, Nuxt image attaches an error event assisting us in handling situations when image loading fails. This prevents a negative user experience in the event of image loading failure. Finally, we have an SRC attribute that ensures the correct size and image are being applied during render. There's a long list of configuration options that allow users to set parameters such as quality and format. If needed, please visit the official Nuxt image documentation to learn more. Another technique we're going to take a look at is dynamic imports. And by dynamic imports, we're essentially referring to lazy loading content as it's needed. This could be useful for loading a page only when a user routes to it, or loading content only when it becomes visible in the viewport. To implement lazy loading in Nuxt 3, we just need to add the lazy prefix onto the name of the component that we want to lazy load. In our case, we will change the article card to lazy article card. There are additional tools that can positively impact the performance of our Nuxt app. For example, the Partital integration for Nuxt relocates resource-intensive scripts into a web worker. A web worker is essentially a JS script that runs in the background separate from the main thread of a web page. This significantly speeds up your site as your app can now focus on important tasks such as rendering the UI and handling user interactions without being bogged down. Setting up Partital is straightforward and requires little to no configuration. All you need to do is install the Nuxt.js Partital module and add it to the module section of your Nuxt config. Now, you can add the text/Partital attribute to any scripts you want to be handled by Partital and you're good to go. Another really helpful tool is the vue.js Nuxt module. This module is designed to help you easily turn your Nuxt.js apps into a progressive web app. PWAs use performance optimization techniques like code splitting and caching to load apps quickly, even on slower internet connections. This can give your app a performance boost and ensure a smooth user experience. This module offers sensible defaults for common PWA functionalities, such as automatic web app manifest injection directly embedded within your app's JavaScript code. For context, a web app manifest is essentially a JSON file that provides detailed information about an application to the browser. This information can include the app name, the color theme, and even the startup URL. It allows the browser to offer enhanced functionality for the web app, such as displaying an install prompt, creating a home screen icon, or providing offline functionality, which are key features of PWAs. This makes it easy to get started right away without any configuration. All you need to do is install the module and add it to the module section of the Nuxt config. Finally, let's look at Fontaine, a module that can make your web fonts load faster and appear smoother on screen. Sometimes web fonts can take a while to load, and this can be a bad experience for the user. Fontaine automatically generates fallback fonts as well as font metrics, which are essentially instructions for the browser on how to display the font. Setting up Fontaine is as easy as installing the module and configuring it in your Nuxt config file. Nuxt will then scan your font face rules and generate fallback rules with the correct metrics. Let's take a look at this example on how Fontaine works. Please note that at the time of this recording, the Nuxt.js Fontaine module is currently under active development. For optimal performance, you will need to inline all your CSS and not just the font face rules to avoid inconsistencies in your layout. As we've seen, there are multiple ways we can boost the performance of our Nuxt.js apps with the help of useful modules and libraries. By implementing these optimization techniques, you can significantly improve the loading speed and the overall user experience of your Nuxt.js applications, making them more efficient and impactful. In the next lesson, we're going to take a look at Nuxt Middleware and how it can help us secure our routes and control who and what has access to our app. Alright, I'll see you in the next lesson. As we explore the Nuxt ecosystem, another valuable resource we'll take a look at is Nuxt Middleware. Nuxt provides us with two types of middleware, server and client middleware. But before we talk about these types of middleware, let's take a look at what a middleware is. To put it simply, middleware allows us to run some code before a page is rendered. In the case of server middleware in Nuxt, it is code run on every request before a server route, and this is only applicable when using Nuxt 3 server. In the case of route middleware in Nuxt, it is code that runs on the client before navigating to a specific route. Common examples of code you'd want to run before navigating to a page include things like checking for authentication, redirection, analytics, and so forth. Let's take a look at the first type of middleware, the client middleware, also referred to as the route middleware. Nuxt Middleware makes your Nuxt app more efficient and secure and makes it easy to run custom logic on each route on your Nuxt app. You can think of it as the checkpoint right before you enter a venue. Middleware acts as the vigilant bouncer, ready to make sure only people with the proper credentials can enter. Although the term middleware can sound technical and perhaps intimidating, ultimately it's just a JavaScript function. Let's take a look at the fundamental structure of a middleware function. A middleware function always accepts two arguments from Nuxt, to and from. In other words, we know where the user is going to and where they are coming from. These arguments are essentially route objects, which typically include values found in a route data parameter, such as params, query, and path. So, what are some ways to use the Nuxt middleware in your application? A common use case for middleware is to navigate users to a specific page. To achieve this, we can use the Nuxt middleware global helper method called navigate_to. Let's say, for example, we want to check if our user is an admin, and if they are not, we will redirect them to a login page. The way we'll do this is to check if the path is equal to /admin. If the user does not have an admin property, we would redirect them using navigate_to, which accepts the name of the path we want to redirect the user to, which in this case is the login page. We can also pass in an optional config, where we can define things such as whether or not we want to replace the browser history. By default, this is false, which means that the user can still hit the back button, but we can update that, along with setting a redirect code and redirect to an external page. For example, if we want to redirect to a URL that lives outside of our app's route, we can set external to true. This informs Nuxt that this is a secure path which we recognize as safe. So, how and where do we actually use our route middleware? There are several ways to implement middleware. One method is within a component as demonstrated in the script section. We'll first add the define page meta function, which is a global Nuxt UI function that allows us to configure page settings. Then we'll add the middleware property inside the function. This is what we call inline middleware, since it's added inline into the component. Alternatively, we can extract our middleware into its own file that we add to our middleware directory. This allows us to simply add the name of our middleware into an array wherever we need it. This is called name middleware, and it can lead to more maintainable and scalable implementation of middleware throughout your project. We can go ahead and export a standard JavaScript function like we did for our inline middleware. However, instead of using an anonymous function which can lead to difficult debugging, we can use Nuxt define Nuxt route middleware helper method. This method automatically adds types to our function, improving things like autocomplete and making our code easier to read. We can then go ahead and update this in our component. The define page meta function provided by Nuxt automatically checks the middleware directory. This means we don't need to manually import the middleware. Instead, we simply use the name of the middleware file as a string in the function. We could even make our middleware global. Doing this is very straightforward. We just append the term global onto our middleware's file name. Now, this middleware is available everywhere without setting it up locally within specific components. Then, we can go ahead and delete the middleware declaration from the admin view, and everything should work as expected. The second type of middleware Nuxt provides exists on the server and is known as server middleware. Server middleware is any code that runs prior to the server code being executed. This is how server middleware works. A request is sent to the server, so middleware code is executed, and then the server code returns a response. Since the server middleware functions only in the context of the Nuxt UI server, it needs to live in the server directory. The next step is to create a middleware directory within the server directory. Now, any file that exists within this middleware directory is treated as a server middleware. Nuxt middleware is primarily designed for the client, and since we're on the server, we won't be able to use things like define Nuxt middleware here. Instead, like most things on the server, we will define an event handler. Let's look at an example where we implement a server middleware to validate user authentication. We have a simple login page that sets a cookie with the user ID using the Nuxt UI composable use cookie. Inside our middleware, we can use this cookie to validate user authentication. Since we're on the server, we won't be able to use the use cookie composable as this only works within the Nuxt context. As a result, rather than using use cookie, we will need a new function, getCookie. When using getCookie, it's important to remember that the server code lacks browser context. Therefore, we will need to pass in the event as the first argument, followed by the cookie ID you want to retrieve. When working with server middleware, resuming the intended code operation can be as simple as a return statement. So we want to validate if the cookie exists. If it does, we will return that everything checks out and it's okay to resume. If not, then we need to redirect them to the login page. Since we are not on the client anymore, functions like navigate to are unavailable. So we will need something else to tell the browser to redirect the user. The send redirect function would work great in this case. It accepts 3 arguments: the event we're redirecting, where we want it to go to, and the redirect code. Based on the way our code works, it will always redirect to the login page when auth is false, even if we're trying to go to the login page to get authenticated. To prevent this infinite redirect, we will need to determine the user's current path. To do this, we can use the getRequestURL helper method. What this does is accept an event and return an object of the user's current path. Once we have this, we can go ahead and add an extra condition to our if statement like this. Now our app should work as expected. As we've seen, Nuxt Middleware allows you to create more robust and powerful applications by providing a powerful way to control navigation and injecting custom logic at key points in our application's lifecycle. If you're interested in learning more about Nuxt Middleware, I recommend you check out our Nuxt Middleware course here on Vue Mastery. It contains practical examples and expert insights that will help you master the use of middleware in your project. In the next lesson, we will learn how to transform our Nuxt apps into a full-stack application using Nuxt Nitro. For many front-end developers, building a full-stack application may seem far-fetched. The complexity of adding a separate backend to your front-end setup sounds painful. And if you lack experience working with a backend language or running servers, then you could run into a lot of problems. Well, this is where Nitro saves the day. With Nitro, you can build full-stack web applications with a unified code base, with server-side rendering capabilities and seamless API integration, all within a Nuxt environment that you're already familiar with. This way, you don't have to worry about setting up a different server or working with some unfamiliar backend technology. Everything can now be managed in one place within your Nuxt project. Nuxt Nitro is a lightning-fast universal server engine that simplifies the creation of highly optimized applications across various environments with minimal configuration. Nitro allows you to create API endpoints within your application to handle data fetching and backend logic. These endpoints are auto-generated within your Nuxt app based on your directory structure. So in essence, Nitro gives your Nuxt app full-stack capabilities. Nitro ships with a variety of features, making it the suitable server setup choice for many. These features include universal deployment to cloud providers and edge networks, hybrid rendering modes for better SEO and performance, rapid development with hot module replacement, and portable and compact server code. If you're curious as to how Nitro allows us to deploy our applications anywhere without any code changes, well, this is because of the Nitro server engine. Nitro is a server engine that powers Nuxt apps using version 3 and later. Nitro acts as an abstraction layer separating the rendering logic from the server environment. It uses the concept of handlers, which define how a request should be processed. These handlers can be written in a platform-independent way, focusing on business logic rather than server specifics. Nitro then uses a layer called H3 underneath to handle the actual communication with the server environment, which may include Node.js or serverless functions. This enables the same handler code to run on various platforms. H3 manages the platform-specific communication details, allowing developers to focus on building the application functionality. This also mitigates concerns about underlying server specifics and also facilitates deployments on different platforms with minimal code changes. Let's look at some of Nitro's most impressive features in action. The first feature we will explore is auto-generation of API endpoints. Nitro generates automatic API endpoints by scanning through files in the server directory. In our Nuxt Servers API folder, we can create a new endpoint by simply creating a file. Let's create a file called Pokemon.js. Nitro will now create an automatic API route with /Pokemon. Inside our file, we will use the define event handler utility function to define an event handler for this API route. It essentially wraps your API logic and provides you with a context object, making it easier to handle requests and send responses. Let's have it fetch Pikachu from the Poke API. In our code, we will use the $fetch, which is a built-in Nuxt method that can make HTTP requests on both the client and the server. From a component, we can simply call useFetch on that endpoint to fetch data from the API. If you're not familiar with useFetch, it is a composable to fetch data from within the script setup block. It leverages Vue's reactivity to auto-fetch data when the component is created and updates the data when the dependencies change. If we run our development server, we can see that our data is returned from the Pokemon API. Often, the data that we retrieve from the request contains a lot more information that we need to return to the client. Fortunately, within our APIs, we can sculpt the data to fit our ideal situation. For example, we may only want the Pokemon's ID, name, and sprite. This will save us a ton on performance. While this is beneficial, many use cases require dynamic endpoints. So how can we accomplish this? To do this, we will simply put brackets around our endpoint's file name. Then we can grab the params of our event context and pass it dynamically into our fetch request. Now, whichever Pokemon our component calls for, we can return via our custom crafted API. If we want to build truly performant applications, then we will need to think about caching. Currently, our Nuxt server makes a request to the Poke API whenever the page is reloaded and returns a response in 2.02 seconds on a throttled slow 3G network. Though this is a very simple application, we can enhance application speed and reduce bandwidth usage through caching. Nitro comes equipped with a caching system built on top of the storage layer. Nitro's built-in support for response caching and payload compression helps to reduce the load on the server and improves performance for our users. To implement Nitro's caching functionality, we can try to cache our response. Just like we've seen in the past, we will need an event handler. We will use the define cached event handler method for this. The define cached event handler method works like the define event handler, but with an additional second options parameter. For our second parameter, we're going to define a max age property that defines how long the response will be cached for. Let's set our max age property to 60 times 5, meaning our response will be cached for 5 minutes and a stale value will be sent to the client while the cache is being updated in the background. Typically, this time is around 60 minutes. Now, let's edit our Pokemon.js file to reflect this. We can go ahead and compare response times and network payload sizes for our app with caching enabled. We can see our payload size indicates it's being fetched from the disk cache, and our response time went from 2.02 seconds to 1 millisecond. After our expiry time of 5 minutes, our cache will be invalid and we'll have to fetch the response from our API once again. Nuxt supports different rendering modes: universal rendering, client-side rendering, and lately, hybrid rendering. You can alternate between all these rendering modes to fit your app's use case with one line of configuration. Let's discuss hybrid rendering. Hybrid rendering allows different caching rules per route using a powerful feature known as route rules. Route rules allow you to define a set of rules to customize how each route of your Nuxt app is rendered. Let's say we have a content site and we want our homepage to be statically generated, our admin dashboard to function as an SPA, while our blog utilizes ISR, known as incremental static regeneration. Within our Nuxt config file, we can set up route rules to achieve this, where setting pre-render to true sets up our homepage to be pre-rendered at build time, setting SSR to false tells our dashboard to only render client-side, and setting our ISR to 3600 informs the page to be generated on demand and regenerated every hour. It's important to note here that hybrid rendering isn't available if we build our entire project using Nuxt Generate. As we've seen, Nitro is one of the core components that powers Nuxt and provides it with many additional interesting features. From enabling us to build full-stack applications, solving common problems like caching, and its support for hybrid rendering, Nitro allows for highly optimized delivery of our Nuxt applications. In the next lesson, we'll take a look at Nuxt UI library for building visually appealing web applications. Alright, I'll see you in the next lesson. Welcome back. We've been looking at multiple tools in our Nuxt treasure trove, but we need to remember, Nuxt was created as a front-end framework, a medium to visually present apps to our users. And the property of a great application is an appealing user interface. It has to look good as well as offer a great user experience. So in this lesson, we're going to explore how to build visually pleasing applications using the library in the Nuxt ecosystem, Nuxt UI. Once you've built a bunch of UIs, the task can start to seem repetitive and time-consuming. Nuxt UI can be a solution to break free from busy work, since it comes with dozens of meticulously designed UI components so you can swiftly and elegantly craft responsive web interfaces. It's built on top of headless UI and Tailwind CSS, so if you've used either of those, the workflow should feel familiar. Nuxt UI has some features that makes it the top choice when choosing a UI component library. Some of these features include a robust collection of 50 plus UI components, full customization of any component globally through app config or individually using the UI prop. It's built on top of headless UI and Tailwind CSS, and so it maintains familiarity amongst front-end developers. Light and dark modes for every component out of the box with Nuxt.js color mode, as well as keyboard shortcuts and other features. In this lesson, we're going to explore a clone of our X-Profile Key View Mastery that was created using Nuxt UI. Let's go through the code to see Nuxt UI in action. In this section, we're rendering two images, the profile image and the header image. We utilize Nuxt image for the header, and we use the UAvatar component to render the profile or user avatar. We are able to style the layout of our UI using Tailwind CSS classes because Nuxt UI is built on top of Tailwind. The Edit Profile button is created using the Nuxt UI button component, UButton. Nuxt UI provides a UI prop to every component to allow customization of that component. You can learn more about this property and how it works in the theming section of the official Nuxt UI docs. Our button component will accept a UI prop to allow us to replace the value of the rounded prop for buttons with rounded full, giving it a pill-shaped look. Currently, we've set the size of our avatar to XL, which is the largest avatar size in Nuxt UI. However, this size isn't large enough. What we can do is customize the XL property in our app config to increase the default size of the avatar. Thanks to Tailwind merge, the app config is smartly merged with the default config. This means you don't have to rewrite everything. The rest of the bio section is made up of mostly text and links. Now, we're going to complete our X-Profile UI by building out the tab section for posts and replies. Tabs in Nuxt UI are rendered using the uTabs component. To render our post and replies tab, we will need to add 3 arrays. The items array to store our tab items, posts and replies. The post array, which will contain the content of each individual post. And the replies array, which will contain the content of each individual reply. Let's create this in the script section of our app and populate it with data. The uTabs component will loop through our items array containing posts and replies to display our tabs. Inside uTabs, we have 2 template components. The first template displays each individual tab item and recognizes when the tab is selected by the user. Here, we define the styles for a selected tab by specifying this with the vif modifier and assigning the appropriate class to the label of each tab. The second template will be responsible for rendering tab content, as we will soon see. In our project, there's already a post component in the components folder. We're going to use this to display our tab content. We can start to fill this out by first creating an items prop that will be used to render content. Let's build out the component to render our posts and replies. First, we're going to create a uContainer to wrap our content. Inside of the container, we'll use the v-for to iterate over the posts and replies array and use the uCard component to present each item. We're going to style our card component to display individual posts. First, we'll need to override the component's default styles using the UI prop. Let's add some styles to it. Great, now we can start to flesh out the individual post display. To begin, we'll create a div wrapper with a flex display of full width. Each post is accompanied by the user avatar, which we'll add using the uAvatar component. Let's add some spacing between the avatar and the tweet content using the class ml-4. Next, let's add our name, X handle, and its content. We'll need to achieve the correct styling here by adding margin to the left. Then, an inner div with flex and items baseline, which will allow the name and Twitter handle to be side by side at the bottom of the div. To finish up our post component, we will need to add icons for the number of likes, comments, shares, and views. To do this, we will make use of Nuxt icons. Nuxt icons provides over 200,000 ready-to-use icons from Iconify. Let's run this command to set up Nuxt icon in our project. Now, when we check our modules array in our Nuxt config, we should see our Nuxt icon installed. Nuxt icons comes prepackaged with hero icons by default. For example, we could add a comment icon from hero icons, but not all icons are present in the hero icon pack. So, to find other icons, we will need to explore the icons website. We've been able to get icons for like, share, comment, and views. The retweet icon doesn't exist in the hero icon pack, but we've been able to find it in the system uIcons pack. Since Nuxt icon only comes with the hero icon pack by default, to use any other icon in any other icon pack, we will need to install the module locally in our project. Let's install the system uIcons module. Now, we'll be able to use all available icons in the system uIcons pack. Before we add our icons, let's start the layout where it will be displayed. Create a div with a flex display. Next, add sufficient spacing to our icons using justify between. And finally, let's add some spacing to the top using mt-3. Now we can add in our various icons. Let's add in the comment icon, then the retweet icon, then the like icon, the view icon, and finally, the share icon. We need to conditionally display the list of posts or replies using the vif and velsif conditionals. Each tab's content will be wrapped in the post component. So if we want to display a list of posts, we'll use this. And if we want to display a list of replies, we'll use this. Let's go ahead and run our development server to check that everything works as expected. If we head over to our browser, our tabs component should now display our posts and replies. Awesome, we've successfully created our X profile using Nuxt UI. Despite this being a brief introduction on Nuxt UI and its features, Vue core team member and Nuxt.js ambassador Ben Hong has a great course here on Vue Mastery where he builds a Trello clone using Nuxt UI. Be sure to check it out. While using Nuxt UI already gives you an advantage, considering an upgrade to Nuxt UI Pro could take you to the next level. Nuxt UI Pro offers over 50 premium Vue components built on top of Nuxt UI and can significantly increase the speed at which you create beautiful and responsive Nuxt applications. This is because Nuxt UI Pro ships with ready-to-use templates powered by advanced Vue components and Nuxt content to handle data that cover a wide range of use cases. Some of these use cases include landing pages, documentations, dashboards, or entire SaaS products in minutes. Nuxt UI Pro takes customization to the next level by including slots for everything. Each component leverages the power of Vue slots to give you the freedom to build anything. There is also full text search out of the box, so there's no need to set up Algolia doc search anymore. As of this recording, Nuxt UI Pro is at version 1.0, with the Nuxt team planning many more enhancements in the future. Upgrading to Pro not only allows for quicker application development, but it also directly aids the continued innovation in the Nuxt community, supporting the dedicated developers who are continually improving and expanding the Nuxt ecosystem. In the next lesson, we're going to take a look at another important tool in our workflow that gives us control over how we manage content. Alright, I'll see you in the next lesson. While building visually appealing applications with seamless user experiences is important, we need to remember that it is the content that truly drives traffic, user engagement, and compels a user to stay on the site. From compelling articles to informative guides and well-structured product descriptions, content plays a vital role in a website's success. However, for developers, finding a seamless way to manage and integrate content into our apps can be a difficult task. This is why the Nuxt Content module was created. Nuxt Content allows you to manage content in your local repository instead of depending on a third-party library. Let's take a look at how this might work for creating a blog. This module offers a collaborative Git-based CMS. It allows you to write your site content such as blog posts or product descriptions in Markdown. It also provides an intuitive API for fetching and displaying content. With automatic code splitting and lazy loading, it ensures that content-rich pages do not affect your site speed and user experience. On top of all this, you get full text search capabilities out of the box from client side. Let's take a peek at how this might work for creating a blog. We can easily set up a project that utilizes Nuxt content by using the Nuxt Content Starter available on Nuxt.new. Let's set up a new Nuxt content project on our local machine. After installation, we can take a look at the content directory in our project. The core of Nuxt content is the content directory. Nuxt content automatically generates routes and properties for your content based on the file structure and naming conventions. Currently, our folder already contains 2 Markdown files that were created for us during setup, about.md and index.md. If we run our development server and go to our browser, we can see that these files are already being rendered. And that is because of our slug.vue component in our pages directory. Within our project, we have a dynamic slug.vue component that renders content from our content directory using the content doc component. The content doc component allows us to query our content directory and renders a single document based on the path. Files can also exist in subfolders inside the content directory to categorize your content. Let's create a folder for our blog and create our first article inside of it titled firstpost.md. We can simply write out our post in a .md file, defining our front matter metadata at the top, which can be programmatically accessed and utilized later. This MD file typically lives in the content directory, and Nuxt Content knows to scan this directory for MD files as well as JSON, YAML, and CSV files. Each Markdown file is parsed, and the front matter is converted into key value pairs, while the body is converted into a rendered HTML string or a view component, depending on how you configure the content module. It then creates an internal database to index the content, making it searchable and queryable. Nuxt Content automatically generates API endpoints for accessing this data. When you query content in your app, you're making requests to these API endpoints. In most cases, we'll need to fetch content dynamically. So let's look at how we can query content dynamically from inside a view component. First, we'll extract our current route's path by destructuring path from useRoute. Then we can fetch our content dynamically using the asynchronous useAsync data and utilize the query content function to query the files that live in our content directory. Using daisy chaining, we can perform more complex queries such as sorting and limiting. Then we can simply render out the content we fetched. At the end of the day, Nuxt Content eliminates the need to integrate complex backend and third-party API to manage content in your Nuxt application. This allows us as developers to focus on building user experiences without worrying about content management issues. To take your learning even further, I recommend you checking out our complete Nuxt content course here on Vue Mastery. This course, taught by Nuxt Ambassador Ben Hong, provides in-depth instruction for working with Nuxt content from project setup to deployment. In the next lesson, we'll take a look at a tool in the Nuxt ecosystem that seamlessly integrates with Nuxt Content Nuxt Studio. Alright, I'll see you there. In our previous lesson, we explored Nuxt Content and how it helps us manage website content through Markdown files and Vue components. Managing content like this is ideal for a solo project such as a personal blog. However, as a developer working in an organization with a content or marketing team, this is unlikely going to be your responsibility. So how do you give your non-technical team members the benefit of Nuxt Content without the need to interact with code? Well, this is where Nuxt Studio comes in. Nuxt Studio has been designed to be customizable for developers and highly user-friendly for content editors. Nuxt Studio gives you a Git-based experience with live preview for your Nuxt content website, and we will see how this works in a bit. Here are some areas Nuxt Studio shines. Nuxt Studio allows for collaborative editing. It has multiple themes tailored for different use cases, provides high-level customization, and offers ease of deployment. To get started, let's visit Nuxt.studio. You'll be able to sign up from the homepage using GitHub as a developer or Google as an editor. We'll have the option to work as a team or facilitate a more collaborative workflow. Since a Google user cannot create a project, they'll need to join a team with existing projects to edit them. In terms of project management, we can either import an existing project from GitHub or start from a template. Let's choose the minimal starter template. Since Nuxt Studio utilizes Nuxt Content, a Git-based CMS, we will need to connect our project to a repository. We can either create a new GitHub repo or add our project to an existing repo. Let's create a new GitHub repo. If you wish, you can update the repository's name and add an optional description. Just like with our Nuxt Content Starter, two Markdown files, index.md and about.md, have been automatically created for us. At this point, we can already start to edit our content directly in Nuxt Studio. Nuxt Studio provides a live Notion-like editing experience with autosave features that makes it easy for content editors to work with the platform. Nuxt Studio keeps track of every change we make to our project and gives us the chance to review and publish our changes just like with GitHub. Just like with Nuxt Content, we can create folders and files directly from our Nuxt Studio UI. Let's create an articles folder and add two articles, first post and second post. Now, whenever we go to /article/article title, we can see our article there. We also have access to a media library where we can store and keep track of all our media files. We can upload assets and media files here that we can use in our content. The last tab in our editor section is the data tab. We can customize and update our app configuration, such as the theme settings in this tab. However, we can't access the data feature without deploying our app. Deploying your studio project comes with some other benefits such as live preview and an optimal editor experience. So let's go ahead and deploy our Studio Starter project. On the left sidebar, click on the Deploy tab under Project. You can either deploy your project on GitHub pages or do it yourself with the self-hosting option. Nuxt Studio handles most of the configuration for us when we deploy using GitHub pages, but know that your repo must be public or else you need a premium GitHub account. The domain name is auto-generated based on your GitHub username and repository name. However, this can be updated to whatever you'd like to name your project. There are also resources provided to set a custom domain name. After we've made the necessary changes, we can click on the Deploy button to deploy the project to GitHub pages. Our project will be available via the URL. Now that our project has been deployed, the live preview option will be available to us via this button. Let's toggle the preview button to see our project update live. We can select the first post.md file and change the header and body of the blog, just like this. We've seen how Nuxt Studio sets up our content teams for success with the ease of creating and editing content, as well as managing and deploying our content site. The Nuxt Studio editor is a complete game changer as it provides a visual structure for managing and editing your content. In the next lesson, we'll look at how Nuxt developers can tinker with the inner workings of their Nuxt applications using Nuxt DevTools. I'll see you in the next lesson. Alright, we've talked about various gems in our Nuxt development treasure trove that improve our development workflow as Nuxt developers. In this lesson, we'll shift our focus to one final tool that saves developers a lot of time debugging and optimizing their application. And this is the Nuxt DevTools. Please note that Nuxt DevTools requires a Nuxt version of 3.9 or higher to work. Let's take a look at the benefits of using Nuxt DevTools. Nuxt DevTools provides enhanced debugging, acting as a powerful debugging companion, offering clear and concise error messages. It could be used to visualize our app structure, and it also provides real-time performance monitoring. For this lesson, we'll be using a minimal Nuxt startup project to demonstrate the Nuxt DevTools. The Nuxt DevTools are typically auto-installed and added to the Nuxt config file during the setup of a Nuxt project. All we need to do is ensure that the enable property is set to true. In this lesson, we're going to examine the features of the DevTools and explore how to extend them with our own modules through custom tabs. If we run our development server and open up our browser, we should see the DevTools icon sitting at the bottom of the screen. Let's begin by examining the DevTools interface. From the Overview tab, our DevTools provides us with several insights. The Nuxt logo, which leads us to the official Nuxt.js website, the Vue logo, which takes us to the official vue.js website, the Pages tab, which shows the current route as well as dynamic routes, and a form to fill with each params interactively. We can also see the Components tab, which shows all of the components that make up our app, including built-in components and runtime components. The Imports tab shows all the auto imports registered to Nuxt with information about which files are importing them and where they're from. The Modules tab shows all the modules we have installed and also provides links to their documentation and source code. You can also update a module directly from the DevTools. It is currently empty as we have no modules currently installed in our Nuxt app. And finally, the Plugins tab displays all the plugins used in our app. These features are useful to developers as it provides full transparency about how our components, composables, and modules all interact with each other. It also gives us a live view of our app's data and performance metrics, making it easier to identify areas of improvement. While the Nuxt DevTools are great out of the box, developers may want to extend its features for a better development experience. The Nuxt DevTools provides a way for developers to add their own modules through a custom tab. Here are some of the ways Nuxt developers are utilizing the custom tabs feature in the Nuxt DevTools. Debugging specific modules or components, visualizing performance metrics, and integration with third-party tools such as vtest. Let's look at how we can extend our DevTools for our custom needs. We're going to extend our DevTools by adding Histoire to our DevTools variable in a custom tab. Stories enable you to display one or more components for specific use cases in your browser. If you've ever used Storybook before, think of Histoire as a Storybook alternative powered by Vite. This way, you can reuse your Vite config, thereby saving time setting up and writing stories. Alright, so how can we integrate this as a custom tab? Well, first thing we'll want to do is install the Histoire package, the Histoire Vue plugin, and the Histoire Nuxt plugin. After that is done installing, let's create an Histoire config file at the root of our project directory. This file will allow us to configure and customize how Histoire works in our app. Now, let's add the plugins we installed to this file. Great. Now we will need to write the components and stories we want in our app. Our first component is a simple button component with variant sizes, color options, and of course, a way to change text using slots. Writing a story for this is similar to writing a Vue component. We want to ensure that the component name matches the story name, with the only difference being the addition of .story before the .vue extension. First, we'll import ref from Vue. Then we'll import our button component. And finally, we can create a button text variable and give it a default ref value of click me. Next, let's create our template, which will serve as a view to present our story in Histoire. Let's repeat the same process for a tools component with variant colors, text, and icons. Great! Now we need to add scripts to our package.json that will enable us to run and view Istwa in action. Let's add the following scripts to our package.json file. When that is done, we can now run our Istwa server from our terminal. The final piece to our puzzle is to configure our custom tab to display Istwa. To do this, let's head over to our Nuxt config file. Inside the DevTools object, we can nest a custom tabs object and give it the following properties. Name, which is the name of our custom tab. Title, which is what we'll see when we hover on our custom tab icon. Icon for visually representing our custom tab. And a view object, which is how our custom tab will be presented in our DevTools. Currently, we can only view custom tabs through an iframe. So let's set type to iframe and src to the address of the port which our Istwa server is running on. Now, if we go back to our application, we should see Istwa running in our custom tab. Isolating and testing our components directly from the DevTools without having to switch tabs improves the overall development experience. It is clear that DevTools are a game changer for Nuxt developers going forward. Offering transparency and real-time data about their applications fosters smarter decision-making regarding app performance and facilitates seamless debugging. We covered a lot of ground together and explored a lot of gems that can significantly improve our productivity while building Nuxt apps. I encourage you to expand your knowledge on the topics we discussed by exploring more courses from our comprehensive library here on Vue Mastery. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and good luck with your future projects.